my demonstration was a little bit long, so excuse me not to repeat it, and I would be unable to summarize it in a few minutes. So please go look at it if you are interested. But of course, in that case, the narrative and cine-dramatic composition is remote from the ideal of unism. In fact, Cheminsky could not go on with his position. The idea of the unistic tableau was not impossible to achieve, and it was achieved in a few paintings, such as composition number 9. But the idea was impossible to sustain in the 30s, or even worse, during and after the Second World War. It was impossible within the most dramatic time. The de-dramatization of the tableau was contradicted by the dramatic current of history. Cheminsky had no choice. He had to deal with an anti-unistic experience. He had to assume that contradiction inside his work. And it's what he did. And it's why his work is so great. Because he's one of these artists who included the opposition to his idealistic idea of the tableau. And he did it wonderfully, in a way I know very few artists who did it, in a series of collages. So then we entered this problem of the collage as the real, how to say it, the real medium, no, not medium, the real procedure which transformed the tableau. So he did it in collages, combining drawings and photographs. And this is the series, now a little bit famous, but I tell you, a few years ago, nobody was interested in that. To My Friends, the Jews, produced in 1945. The theoretician of unism wanted to achieve the all-over unity of the tableau by relieving it from the conflict of forces involved in the dramatic plot. But the drama returned outside, all around, fulfilling the external space. He wanted to fulfill the tableau, and what was fulfilled is the external place with space, with horror. That's what happened to many people, but very few artists were able to interpret it. The laws of history, as it is said, are not the laws of space. The conflict of forces cannot be expelled from history. In December 1934, during a discussion with Cheminsky, and this discussion is, I think, one of the most intense debates brought up by the destiny of non-figurative art, Leon Schwistek said strongly, "Atemporal space is a fiction. There is nothing, and there will be never anything in such a space." Atemporal space, a space without time, is a fiction. There is nothing in such a space, and there will be never anything in such a space. Cheminsky admitted it and even agreed to think in terms of anti-unism. The appeasing content of the tableau could not function any longer the way it did in the previous unist compositions. Finish? No. In 2004, In a big room of the in the Museum of Contemporary Art in Barcelona, I presented to my friends, the Jews, in relation to the book, it was like that, to the book of Pierre Reverdy, Le Chant des Morts, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful books, illustrated books produced in 20th century art. Just amazing. And the two things related, it was really something. And the room was organized around the work of Antonin Artaud. Obviously, the composition number 9 could not have found its place in such a content. To my friends, the Jews, belongs to the anti-unist side of Cheminsky's work. In the 40s, during the war, the ideal of an atemporal space could not function any longer. But it was still there. In the background, transformed in the lyrical support of a clarified pathos. From above time and death, Cheminsky could speak to the Jewish community which had been excluded and destroyed. From above time and space. Je parle de par-dessus le temps, said Artaud, exactly at the same time. Exactly at the same time. Je parle de par-dessus le temps. I speak from above the time. It's not meaning that Artaud was thinking of himself as God. Huh? The unist idea, the unistic idea of the tableau could still contradict crime and division, but only if it was related with the anti-unist stance. Excuse me, it's a little bit dialectical, but that's the way sometimes things go. In the same way as unism had produced the ideal of a de-dramatized space and place, anti-unism was the interpretation of the most dramatic load of history in the same way. The evolution of Cheminsky works leads me to the question of the documentary content of the tableau. I will make it short. I mean, it's clear that, oh, excuse me, I didn't show you Le Chant des Morts. So this is the Chant des Morts, I mean, reproduction. And voilà. And especially that part. Et toujours la mort entêtée, la mort vorace, the voracious death. That's, you know, the voracious eye. Huh? Alors, the documentary content of the tableau. Short. It's clear, I think, that the encounter between the tableau as a pictorial form and the document is one of the very distinctive characteristics of current photographic creation. Voilà, one example. So that was Artaud in the show in Barcelona. Voilà, this is an example. Look at the title. It's not a title, it's a caption. It's a title as a caption. The form of the title is a caption, which means that it is really documentary. This is what Jeff Ford, in a very obsessive way now, calls depiction. It can be related with this very famous painting by Turner. Here again, the title is a caption. The tableau depicts a snowstorm at sea, and this title, formulated as a caption, is a type of manifesto. The picture, as you know, was judged to be indecipherable. But Turner had anticipated the reaction of the public. He was indicating his concern for precision and laying claim to the authority of the witness. A snowstorm at sea cannot be rendered with the clarity of a topographical view. Jean Turner was mastering. Here, if there is realism, it diverges by necessity from the model of a clear, detailed, and distinct view. More than a landmark in a so-called prehistory of abstraction, Snowstorm is a realistic tableau because it offers testimony of an experience of being blinded. It is about that experience. So it is a document of experience. When I say document, and when I say that there is a connection between the tableau and the document, it's if the document is a document of experience. Otherwise, I think it's very nothing. To a large extent, moreover, the art of Turner is what we called in a very paradoxical way, a realism of blindness. In treating the romantic themes of the storm and the shipwreck, is summoned forth in the history of painting an obsessive metaphor, namely the risk or the perspective of the shipwreck of the figure within the field of color. My last point, if I can do it, will be about another British artist, Richard Hamilton. Because he is, for me, the perfect... first, he died recently, and I wanted to make this a kind of French homage, which was not done in my country, unfortunately. And I think he's a very great artist, and underrated still now. And there is a lot to learn from him. And I learned a lot from him. So I will be short, but I really want to make some points, because that's really about the tableau and the collage and the view and what it means to working inside the view, which is what I had announced for my paper. So, first, Hamilton is not a pop artist. During a dialogue with Marco Livingston in 1992, he rejected strongly this label. He said that his best friend, his close friends were Brotars, Joseph Beuys, Dieter Roth, and no pop artist. His work should be related mainly with Joyce and Duchamp, but also with the program of the painting of modern life, which is the program of Jeffrey now. And this program has an alternative to the pop idea. And I think we need all possible alternatives to the pop idea. He mentioned his reference to Livingston. He had found it in the text of John Russell, published in the catalogue of his show at the Guggenheim in 1973. I didn't ask Jeff yet if he had read this text. This reference to Baudelaire had a similar function, of course, now in the position of Jeffrey. Second, the tableau form in Hamilton's work corresponds to a practice of composition which had been transformed by the procedures of collage and assemblage, at least since Maxence. In 1952, Hamilton designed the catalog for a show on Maxence at the ICA. It was in the early days of the independent group. Of course, it doesn't mean that he was fascinated by Maxence, but Maxence was there. Very important. And Ernst is precisely the artist who, much more with Kurt Schwitters, who much more very important Schwitters also for the independent group. There were two key references for this group of artists Hamilton was part of. Ernst is precisely the artist who, much more than the cubist, dealt with collage as a very technique and mirror of modern life, with its narrative content. In 1926, he realized this small collage, which is not very famous. It's why also I show it, which is a manifesto, a kind of manifesto. It is manifesto-like, using the title page of a book issued a year ago, Rêve and Hallucination. This collage is a manifesto about the use of dream and hallucination in surrealism, following Rimbaud. Because, as you know, hallucination and dream is the center of surrealism. It is also a perfect image and assumption of the satirical post-Dada interpretation of the painting of modern life. And that even in the anti-painting stance of the collage. Look at the way the portrait of Richelieu by Philippe de Champaigne is treated. The quotation of Thomas Carlyle quoting Shakespeare's Tempest in Sartor Resartus is under erasure. Under erasure. That's a translation of sourature. In fact, it is not erased. It is crossed out. If it was erased, you could not see it anymore. It's crossed out, you can still see it. Which means that it is, in a way, suppressed. It means that Maxence prefers to this very pompous sentence, I mean, beautiful and pompous sentence, the stupid, crazy réclame, as it was said at the time in French, ad, this stupid ad at the bottom. But both are together, both work together. The collage put them together. That's what the collage can do. A collage can deal with the under erasure. I say it in English, but it should be said sous rature. Excuse me, under erasure is not a good translation. So, in a way, what you can say that the modern language of art is a style to the supernatural naturalism, which was the invention of Carlyle, as you know. But in the space of the collage, the most diverse, even antagonistic languages can interact. That's exactly what Hamilton found in Ulysses, and he said it. The painting of modern art, modern life, Ernst says, should include the hallucinatory. And what is the hallucinatory? I give you there a definition of it. It is the visionary side of the everyday. The visionary side of the everyday. And you cannot deal with the everyday if you don't deal with this visionary side. which is hallucination. Hallucination is not the great vision of gods and so on. It can be very simple, just, for example, before falling asleep. And that's the side, the surrealistic side of the program of modern life. And that's what you get in the collage, and that's what Hamilton found in this tradition of the collage, and more precisely, in Max Ernst's work. So, at the end, you have in Hamilton the Tableau collage. You know, I think, this interior from 1964, Interior 1, which is now in the Kunsthaus of Zurich. And you know even better this one, which is here, upstairs. The composition of the tableau is not a depiction, it's obvious, of a specific place, but the result of a manipulative process of the elements, objects, shapes, and signs issued from a found image. These are the three studies related to the two compositions, tableau. And, you know, Hamilton used the academic vocabulary. That's very interesting in itself. It's not obvious. The elements of the composition and the corresponding place are rearranged in the floating space of the tableau. And this floating space is exactly what Gustave Flaubert described in 1866 as the hallucinatory tableau. And he said hallucinatory tableau, tableau hallucinatoire, not hallucinatory vision, because he was talking about the structure of it, the form of it. And there, the text, very important, I think, for the history of art, about the hallucination. Not only about the history of literature, but about the history of art in general. My next book will be about that precisely, the hallucination in the history of art, since from Blake to Polke. Anyway, the floating space is the transformation of the suspended frontal rectangle. It is the displacement of the tableau in the field of the view, altered or invaded by hallucination. The story, and I finish now, the story of Interior 1 and Interior 2 is well known. Hamilton used a found image, a movie set photograph from a film by Douglas Sirk, Shockproof, from 1949. The female protagonist has just killed a man, normal. His corpse is lying on the floor, half visible, behind the desk. Hamilton said about it this. It's very clear that he is working with the potential of the photograph and developing the potential of the photograph in a way which is the way of collage, but the way of collage according to the strange, unheimlich effect of the photograph. That's one of the best examples of the Unheimlichkeit in modern painting I could give, but this is, of course, a point I cannot develop. In the study number 1A, in the interior study A, Hamilton used another found image, a view of the salon of Mrs. Rouard, the daughter of Berthe Morisot. And you see a detail of this view included in the study, in a way, I would say, and then reprocessed, voilà, reprocessed. I think this word is very interesting, reprocessed into the first interior. And what is this painting? It is the cherry tree. But when you see it in interior 1, or in the study there, you cannot imagine that it is such a painting. It looks very different. So you see this alteration of the images inside the tableau, the way the tableau is about this life of the images. You see what I mean when I mean inside the view. This work inside the view. Display and movement of images from a study to a tableau is a matter of processing. The transformation of the tableau is a process, but this process is not only technical. Hamilton, once more, is not a pop artist. This process is about the experience of the internal space of the picture when the pictorial is dealing with modern life, including the strange remnants of the past, the processing of memory, the uncanny. Thank you.